So, why do complex systems centralize? The common explanation you always hear is that it's a deliberate choice, right? Someone decides to do it for efficiency, for control. It sounds logical, like an improvement, but that explanation misses something absolutely fundamental.
And look, on the surface, the promise is crystal clear. A single, unified system. It just sounds better. It streamlines everything, cuts down on waste, and gives everyone clear direction. I mean, this is the logic behind everything from corporate mergers to big government agencies and tech platforms.
But that efficiency comes at a steep, non negotiable price. It makes the whole system profoundly weak. And the really unsettling part? This isn't an accident. It's not a bug. It is a guaranteed consequence of a hidden structural force that's pulling the strings. To get a handle on this, let's picture something. Imagine a landscape, but it's not fed by one big river. It's fed by thousands of tiny, independent streams. Each one finds its own path, adapting to the little bumps and dips in the terrain. The whole thing is complex, it's redundant, and yeah, it looks a little chaotic. This is what a decentralized state looks like. Now, if you're standing there looking at this tangled web of streams, what's the first thing you think? This could be better. This can be improved. And that impulse isn't malicious. It's completely rational. It's the desire to bring some kind of order to what looks like chaos. So you have all these individual people, each just trying to improve their own little corner of the world. They see what looks like duplicated effort, wasted resources. And so, all on their own, they start moving toward a more organized and what seems like a much, much better solution. And the result? All those many streams are replaced by a single, perfectly engineered canal. It's wide, it's straight, it's fast. The flow is now predictable, you can measure it. By every conventional metric, this is a huge success. The optimization worked. But this is where the unseen consequences start to creep in. The new central authority, the manager of this canal, has a perfect view of the total water flow. But they are now totally blind to the landscape itself. All that fine-grained detail from the original terrain just starts to vanish. The absorbent soil in one patch, the rocky ground in another. That very specific local information is no longer visible to the system's core. It's all been replaced by a single, simplified average at the canal's control gate. And this creates a huge gap. The central authority sees a single metric on a screen, flow rate. But the local agent, the person who used to rely on their little stream, they see dry earth, they see wilted crops. The two of them are no longer observing the same reality. From the control center, every decision they make is still perfectly rational, based on the data they have. System requires more water? Okay, open the valve wider. But that logic is completely detached from the ground truth. The decisions are precise in what they're trying to do, but they're becoming more and more clumsy and mismatched in how they actually land. So the system takes the next logical step. Those old, inefficient streams, they're not just ignored anymore. Now they're seen as an obstacle, something in the way of further optimization. So they get filled in, paved over, built on top of. The pass back to the old way is being systematically erased. This local optimization now scales up across the entire system, and its whole character begins to change. The system doesn't just manage diversity anymore, it starts to actively eliminate it. Alternative methods, different approaches, local adaptations, they all just start to disappear. There is now only one standard way to do things, the way of the canal. And of course there is. It's easier to manage, easier to regulate, easier to measure. It is, by definition, efficient. And right here, the trade-off becomes painfully obvious. The diverse system, with its mess of streams, was resilient. If one got blocked, others would compensate. No big deal. The centralized system is incredibly efficient, but it's brittle. It has no redundancy. It's optimized for one specific set of conditions, and that makes it vulnerable to everything else. Every single part of the landscape now relies on that single canal. There's no other source of sustenance left. The well-being of the entire system is now tethered to the flawless functioning of one single point. And then, the inevitable happens. A blockage, a small mechanical failure, a simple miscalculation at the intake. It doesn't matter how small it is. A tiny localized problem immediately creates system-wide consequences. The flow slows to a trickle, and the entire landscape begins to thirst. That efficiency has created a single point of failure. Now, at this point, the rational choice would seem to be to just exit the system, find another way. But the structure has been quietly working to make that impossible. The price of walking away has been steadily, silently rising this whole time. I mean, think back to the beginning. There were alternatives. Options were everywhere. But as that central canal became more and more dominant, those other options just dwindled. Competing streams dried up from neglect. Their paths were forgotten. The space for alternatives just consolidated, until finally, no viable exit remains. The other streams aren't just dry, they've been erased from the landscape. To leave the system now means starting from nothing, on barren land. The lock-in is complete. This whole process, it might look like a series of choices, some good, some bad. But it's more accurate to think of it as a form of gravity. It's a structural pull that is almost impossible to resist. And here we can finally see the heart of the mechanism. The problem was never malice or incompetence. The problem is knowledge. As the economist Friedrich von Hayek pointed out, all the relevant facts are so numerous and so spread out that a complete top-down view is impossible for any single mind or any central authority. So let's reframe this entire process. Centralization isn't some top-down decision. It's the result that emerges when many rational local actors all decide to optimize. Each step makes perfect sense in isolation, but in aggregate, they build a structure that guarantees its own fragility. And this is the final state. The canal is cracked and dry, the field is barren. The original streams, they can't be recovered. It's an irreversible state change. And the crucial insight is this. The system was never failing. It was perfectly and successfully following the logic of its own structure.